Welcome to the Passive House podcast, brought to you by Passive House Accelerator, a catalyst for zero carbon building. For news, inspiration, and connections from all flavours of Passive House, check out passivehouseaccelerator.com. Sign up to receive regular updates about events, get your questions answered, and contribute to the community dialogue. There's loads of free information for experienced professionals and people just starting out on their Passive House journey. We hope to see you at one of our weekly Passive House Accelerator live webinars. In the meantime, here's this week's Passive House podcast. Well, welcome back to the Passive House podcast. And this week we have another special component episode. Who we got on the show this week, Zach?
Yeah, so we have Lamilux being featured on this special episode, and we're joined by Akshayaa Kariyakkar and Jeremy Latriano, who are project consultants with 475 High Performance Building Supply. So 475 is the conduit for Lamilux in North America. So if you're interested in these amazing high performance skylights and roof treatments, then you are going to want to talk with Akshayaa and Jeremy at 475. So they go into the details a little bit of the product line and a little bit about the history of this family-owned business. They both started at City College and have that connection to 475. So really interesting conversation. I hope everybody enjoys it. I have Akshayaa Kariyakkar and Jeremy Latriano, who are both product consultants with 475 High Performance Building Supply, here with me for a special component podcast episode of the Passive House podcast. Akshayaa and Jeremy, welcome. You're also both experts on all things Lamilux, and Lamilux is our topic of conversation today. And so we have a little bit of a twofer because we're joined by 475 about Lamilux, the company and the product. So I'm really looking forward to diving into all this with you today. How about we start with a little bit about both of you? So Akshayaa, if you wouldn't mind telling us a little bit about your journey and what has brought you to 475.
Yeah, so I'm an architect by background. I studied architecture in India, and I wanted to move to New York City, and realized that I was more interested in the sustainability side of things. So I did my master's in a course that integrated architecture with engineering and economics. We had a low energy buildings course in college, and that brought me, it introduced me to Passive House. Mm-hmm. And we have a lot of City College veterans here at 475 alumni.
Right.
So I'm one of those people, and I joined here as an intern, and then I started full time, and I've been here ever since.
That's great. And Johnny Rezvani is also the City College. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah. And so is Jeremy.
Yes. Yeah. Several of our employees as well.
Were you students at the same time there?
Pretty much. Yeah.
That's cool.
We took that class together, actually. Yeah.
Awesome. So a similar origin story here. So how about you, Jeremy?
Yeah, absolutely. I think Akshayaa and I definitely have similar backgrounds, at least more recently, having been classmates at City College together in the sustainability and the urban environment program. My undergraduate was a little bit different from Akshayaa's. I was business backgrounds, focusing on energy business and finance at Penn State, kind of thinking I wanted to go more in the renewable generation side of the sustainability spectrum, but took a course that actually introduced me to the USGBC and LEED certification late my senior year, and really was inspired, I would say, by the ability to reduce the total carbon output of our society by making more energy efficient buildings. So my introduction to sustainable building and design was really through LEED. I interned at Urban Green Council, which is the USGBC chapter in New York, and kind of got more of an introduction to LEED at that point. And then I enrolled in the Sustainability in the Urban Environment Master's Program that Akshayaa and I participated in together. As she mentioned, we were in the same low energy buildings course in our first semester together. One of the teachers of that course was Ben Lear, another graduate of the program, another alumni who went on to teach that course along with Alan Barlas. So he introduced 475 to both of us as his profession, and I attended a career fair at City College shortly after, and similar to Akshayaa, I started as an intern. That was 2017, so I've been with the company for 5 years, and for 4 of those years, I've been supporting Lamilux as a product consultant. In addition, I also went on to take Ben's role as a adjunct lecturer for the low energy buildings course at City College. Yeah. So we're still kind of making that connection with the college and bringing in students.
You got your recruitment pipeline, yeah.
I was just going to point that out. When Ben left, Ben was part of our department at 475. And when he left, was around the time I joined the company, and then he left his job at City College, and you filled in that role.
Exactly, yeah. I kind of followed right in his footsteps.
Yeah.
Well, that's great. That's a good talent pool to pull from. So that's awesome. So you mentioned Lamilux. So can you talk about the history and relationship between 475 and Lamilux for listeners?
Absolutely. I can jump in here first. 475 partnered with Lamilux in 2013. That was when we sort of started placing orders and building out the market for Lamilux, primarily for their glass roof skylights for low pitch applications, and then also their glass roof systems, highly customizable mullion and transom systems. And we were supplying these units primarily to the New York City market at first, sort of unit skylights for masonry, row home, retrofit applications. And we've kind of expanded from there over the last, I guess it's almost 10 years now, building out the market across the US and Canada and supplying a variety of their solutions for high performance applications.
How about a little bit of the history of Lamilux, right? I mean, this is a unique company. So, where was it founded? What is it? I understand it's a family company. When did they start doing skylights? Like, give us the lowdown.
Well, the interesting thing is I started doing Lamilux fairly recently, and that's because we've experienced so much growth in the US. They wanted to bring somebody else in to support more within the US itself, and they do a lot of export here. So I started educating myself more and more, not only on the product, but I started to learn more about the history, and had some experience working with them before on the supply chain side. And one thing that always came up was they're so efficient. Lamilux is so efficient. We work with them all the time on these things, and they're always so great and so supportive. So I look back and I know that they're an established company, and they go back at least 100 years. Wow. And they started, I believe, in timber construction, and they then had a few patented products within that category. And in a few decades in the 50s, they started doing roof skylight domes. And that evolved into this whole passive house thing. And about 60% of their sales are actually international. Oh. And it's almost like what 475 does is we vet these vendors for you. These are tried and tested products. They're completely established. There's already great infrastructure and support. And it's been great working with them so far as we transition in the company.
Yeah, as Akshayaa mentioned, Lamilux, celebrated their 100th anniversary in 2009. I believe, though, they're actually their foray into passive house and high performance skylights is more recent in their history. I think over the last couple of decades, they've really started to establish themselves as a leader in high performance materials. Previously more focused on the domes that Akshayaa mentioned, but definitely now developing products for a variety of applications that are specifically designed for low energy construction, meeting the principles that we have come to understand support passive house. And so that over the day, more recently, I've been kind of developing those solutions and becoming a bigger player.
So these skylights are pretty unique in the marketplace. I mean, these are massive. They can be these massive units, and they are high performance. Do I have that right? And could you say a little bit more about that, and also go into the product lines that are available to Passive House practitioners?
So a big thing with Lamilux historically has always been quality and innovation. They always want to be not necessarily the biggest player in their field, but they want to be providing the highest quality products among their competitors. And so that's sort of a trend that has existed with Lamilux since they were a carpentry workshop 100 years ago, as they moved into dome skylights and GRP composites. More towards the mid-century, and then finally moving into high-performance glass systems, glass roof systems, and skylights here in the 21st century. So over that time, they definitely focused on developing products that are, like I mentioned, providing quality and innovation. And a focus and a major principle of the development of those products has been the theme of sustainability, which is a high priority for Lamilux. It's one of the first things they list in their mission on their website, is that they want to develop not only their products, but their systems and their culture in a way that's not thinking in terms of months or years, but thinking in terms of generations. And that obviously fits 475's and the Passive House principles very well. The products that they've developed according to the quality and sustainability that they've come to expect, we've separated into 3 product categories. There are the unit skylights, the glass roof systems, and the roof access systems, the latter of which I actually spoke about a couple months ago in the Component Spotlight podcast. The unit skylights are what you've come to expect from a skylight supplier, a pre-assembled glazed solution. Lamilux is unique in that their solutions are higher performing. They're thermally continuous, airtight, triple layer glazing with low E coatings available. So really intended for projects that are looking to maximize the performance of their envelope. For glass roofs or skylights that are more custom in nature or that are more expansive, we supply glass roof systems, knockdown systems that really offer exceptional range and flexibility in design, while also the same exceptional performance that you come to expect from Lamilux. And then more specific fitted solutions for roof access, whether manual or motorized, which don't really necessarily fall into either of those previous categories. And so that we've kind of separated out. Certainly a relevant category for high performance projects in urban areas where access to the outdoors might be limited and that roof space becomes really valuable. And so being able to create that access to the roof without necessarily having to compromise the performance of the envelope opens up some nice options for building professionals.
You just alluded to your Component Spotlight, and we'll make sure that we include that recording, a link to that recording in the show notes. And also this multi-generational perspective, I think, is really interesting and something that is it's not common in the United States to have that sort of history. I mean, there's certainly some companies that have been around for over 100 years, but not a ton. And I think a lot of the companies who are involved in Passive House are considerably younger. So it's interesting to think about the perspective of a family-owned business that has that kind of history. That brings a different kind of view to what their moves must be in this space, and their ideas about sustainability, both as a company and environmental sustainability. So I'm glad that you brought that up.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that when it comes down to it, there just aren't that many players out there that are building components that are comparable to what Lamilux can offer. It's just a kind of a specific industry in terms of roof glazing and low pitch skylight solutions, and to also accommodate the performance that Lamilux offers is fairly unique in the marketplace.
Yeah.
The interesting thing also about the market, like Jeremy said, is in terms of those unique solutions, we have people come to us for circular and round skylights, sometimes that don't even need a high performance solution because there's nobody else in the market that can even offer it. Or even the PR60 glass roof. We had, and this was from before my time, but we had an exterior glass roof, high performance glass roof that was an exterior roof deck, because that was the PR60 was the only engineered solution that could offer a solution that could deliver on that. I'm working on a project right now in Colorado. It has this like, parabolic roof with all of these different angles and all of these things, and they're still in really early stages. But one of the struggles is they cannot find anybody that can even deliver on it. And one of the things that we're able to do is kind of collaborate with the architect. And I'm an architect myself, so this is very interesting for me to also have the opportunity to work on, is what can we do? How can we make this work? Because some of the things that play into it, can the glass go at that angle? Then how do we alter the curb to actually make the solution work? How do we angle that? Where do we put the drainage lines? All of those different variables that come into play, and being able to make that work. It's amazing that it's a high performance solution, but what's also interesting is, even aside from that, they're able to offer such excellent engineering, really, that they're able to accommodate those solutions, which is really cool to work on.
Yeah, so you're able to, you're servicing plenty of passive house projects with these, but also just some really beautiful, probably high design projects that unfortunately may not be passive house, but are looking for good solutions for their skylights.
Well, in a way, it introduces them to passive house, because they were not looking for a high performance solution initially, but because this was the only way they could get to it, they are now introduced to the concept of passive house. And it's kind of like a segue into something that they didn't think about before, that they didn't consider before, that's now on their radar, that they might be considering for future projects.
Or at the very least, an introduction to 475 and everything that we offer. And
right.
Yeah. They keep coming back to us and working with us, hopefully.
Right. Well, the other thing that you touch on with that example is that you've got a product that has a lot of great engineering and attention to detail. Partly, I mean, that's necessary to do a high performance unit. And it's exactly those skills that also allow for creative solution making in these crazy parabolic roofs.
Absolutely, exactly. You have to engineer them well for them to be high performance, and it all plays into the same thing. Yeah.
Very cool. So Lamilux is available at 475. Is that, I mean, that's if people are wanting to find out more or to access these products, you're it in North America.
Yes, we are it.
The exclusive US and Canadian partners of Lamilux. So if there is Lamilux being supplied to the US, we are typically coming through 475. There are certain product groups that Lamilux manufactures that we don't necessarily work with regularly. Products that aren't necessarily intended for high performance passive house applications. And so for certain projects such as that, Lamilux might be more involved. But overall, we're still collaborating, and ultimately the importing is typically done by 475.
Right. And that touches a little bit too to your curatorial role at 475, right? The selecting the Lamilux products that are the most kind of relevant and applicable to passive house practice here, if I understand correctly.
Absolutely. If Flores, the CEO of 475, was familiar with Lamilux and was at the BAO conference, and he definitely has high criteria for companies that he wants to partner with. And even within those companies, the products that we're going to supply, ensuring that they are a good fit and that they are needed here in the US, and that they sort of fit the high performance requirements or qualifications that we've come to expect from our partners.
Yeah. Cool. Well, Akshayaa, you just alluded to a really fun project and partnership. Are there others that either of you would like to share? I think of like things that are on the books now, or that you've been working on, or that you recently completed, that would be fun to share with the audience here. So.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that particularly in Germany and Europe, Lamilux is facilitating a lot of very large commercial institutional glass roofs. That's sort of become their bread and butter, or at least one of their high income offerings. In the US, we've started to tap into that market a little bit. Certainly, it's been a priority for us to be able to work on larger scale in terms of commercial institutional work. But to be honest, I think a lot of the more interesting projects that I get to work on are the projects that marry performance and design. Passive House tends to have a reputation in the design industry of creating structures that aren't always the most interesting or beautiful. I know that Cornell Tech here in New York City was targeted criticism for some of those characteristics. The PR60 is unique in that it allows for architects to be a little more creative in terms of the way that they design high performance structures. And so getting to work with them and show them that they can achieve high performance without compromising design is always very satisfying for me. There's one project currently in Manhattan that I've been working with an architect on, and it's a single family masonry building. They're doing like a penthouse retrofit, and there's going to be a big roof deck. And so the idea is that you walk up to the top story and there is this big glass roof over an enclosed space. And then there's doors that open up to this exterior roof deck. And the glass roof sort of extends from the interior space to the exterior space as a single continuous assembly. Wow. And so they basically came to us with this really crazy looking design. It's got a very strange geometry and the inclination is varied. It's something that's very difficult to even draw, never mind construct. And we've been kind of going back and forth and developing their design and really working directly with some of the designers to ensure that we can get as close to their existing design as possible, given their project-specific restraints and without necessarily having to sacrifice the performance. And that's really interesting to me, being able to marry those concepts in terms of design and performance.
That's really interesting. You know, when I think of architectural elements that cut across the inside and the outside, you think of like Olsen Kundig here in Seattle loves to do that with these huge steel girders, which are beautiful, but the performance has major performance questions. You see similar things with big like mass timber elements. Glass is a different story. So like, how are you dealing with that transition? And what are there's some thermal break issues there. Like, how does that look?
So the glass does have to be separated between the interior and the exterior. If you had continuous glass running through that exterior wall, that would obviously create some sort of thermal bridge. So there is an aluminum break, sort of a profile assembly at the location of the exterior wall. And that profile assembly is insulated, thermally broken. So the glass, obviously triple layer or double layer, either case, it's insulated, providing thermal continuity. The aluminum profiles of the system are also thermally broken. And so separating the glass from interior to exterior with one of those aluminum profiles and then attaching it to the structure with an insulated angle, really just creating a very robust thermal break at the location of the exterior wall and really virtually eliminating any thermal bridges that might occur. Funny you mentioned Olsen Kundig though, and while I have the mic here, I'll run with that a little bit, but we just sent we have a sort of a technician that we brought on recently, Trevor, who's joined the team, and he's handling a lot of the on-site troubleshooting, assembly, and installation work. And he was actually just upstate on an Olsen Kundig project residence that they designed and putting in one of these PR60s. So cool to see them, bigger firm utilizing a product such as this.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we do offer installation support with the larger PR60 skylights. I think that's important to say that we do offer that kind of on-site support as well. And in terms of the, going to your earlier question on the performance, to get the best performance out of your skylight, it is important to install it properly and seal things properly. And we do advise on that as well. And we do have the supporting products and taping that 475 offers to make that work and to have your seamless, thermally robust assembly.
Yeah, a lot is riding on that installation. So I imagine there's some good energy and expertise that you guys are dedicating to ensuring that happens in the right way.
Absolutely. Yeah. Thermal continuity, air continuity, obviously really important for reducing energy usage. And then when you're putting a large amount of glass on the roof, water control also becomes critically important. So being able to offer support for those three things, definitely something that we pride ourselves on.
Sometimes you have clients say that there's condensation on the skylight. We don't have condensation on our skylights, but you do need to install it properly. And we're happy to advise on that, but it does need to be definitely installed properly because that's not condensation, that's water leaking inside. Something to keep in mind.
Absolutely. So, Akshayaa, you mentioned that you're fairly new in this role, and so things are developing, I imagine, fast for you. What do you have coming on the horizon? Like, what's coming up next for you in terms of projects?
Well, there seems to be a lot of growth in a lot of interest in high performance skylights from Colorado and in California. Interestingly, it seem to be these pockets that have been developing. I have a lot of projects coming to me from these two areas. I was surprised to see Colorado. I wouldn't have gone to Colorado immediately in terms of when I think of high performance buildings, but there seems to be a lot of interest over there. And Johnny, our director of marketing at 475, is located, or he's based in Colorado. So it seems to be a high performance passive house pocket developing there that's getting larger and larger.
Yeah. Cool. How about you, Jeremy?
So in general, this year, we have been scaling pretty quickly. So trying to help support the department any way possible to kind of deal with the increase in incoming orders. Definitely been a priority of mine. I'm also looking forward to getting my CPHD certification sometime this year. Definitely a goal of mine personally. And
I didn't know you were working on that.
I'm getting to it. The goal is to have it done this first half of this year, so I could hopefully take the exam and finally get that certification. And yeah, otherwise things have been going pretty well overall with Lamilux. We are in the process of doing a variety of testing and for products in order to ensure that they're best prepared to support U.S. building professionals. And then also just kind of our internal operations and logistics and kind of trying to optimize them for some of the growth that we've seen.
Fantastic. Well, the two of you are in a really cool spot, and it's fun to hear about your work. It's also exciting to hear you're busy with these orders and to learn more about Lamilux.
Always a pleasure to be able to talk with you, Zach, and thanks for inviting us on again.
Been really just exciting to go through the transition and be able to work with Lamilux and to see. It's interesting to see the kind of growth that we've had, because I've been at the company for 3 years, so I know where we started and I know where we're at right now, and it's been interesting to see that trajectory, and now it's really cool to be a part of that trajectory and be a larger part of it, because I was involved more on the supply chain side of things, and now to be involved on the product side and to kind of be more involved and be able to play a role to see where things are going to go is really cool.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, Akshayaa and Jeremy, thank you for your time, and thanks for your support of Passive House Accelerator.
All right. Well, thank you for that chat, Zach. Great catching up. I didn't fully appreciate the whole range of Lamilux. I'm really glad that you caught up with these guys, because I did see their a small display at a trade store at a conference recently. It was 475, which I know of as supplying membranes and tapes and those sorts of things, but I didn't realize they had this connection to a brand that has been around for quite some time.
Yeah, no kidding. It was fun to hear also about 475's kind of curatorial process, or they see themselves as curators of high performance building products that are relevant and useful to the North American market. So there's a filtering that they're doing, and so they found Lamilux and recognized this great solution to both passive house projects and all sorts of high design projects. I first saw a Lamilux product in one of Michael Ingwe's projects, one of his retrofits of a brownstone, I believe in Brooklyn. Michael does these amazing staircases the kind of sculptural staircases in projects. And so that can be, sort of final coup de grace of that design gesture can be these amazing, an amazing source of light at the top. So really, really cool stuff.
It is cool. A couple of things I mentioned, I think were worthy of pointing out. Firstly, just how hard it is to put a window on a low slope roof. I mean, doing a low slope roof is challenging for all sorts of reasons, mostly to do with water. But when you intentionally put a hole in that surface for light or for access, that adds a whole nother level of complication because you've got to keep the thing waterproof. But if you want that hole to open, then you've got to have some really good seals and some really robust systems. And it was interesting hearing them talk about all these sort of complicated roof windows or glass roofs, and the mind boggles at the creativity that is available once you have things like these products that you can use that allow light in, but they have a structural element, they have a waterproofing element, and they can just do incredible stuff while also minimizing the thermal detriment that you might otherwise think of when you put a piece of glass in the envelope. And Jeremy talked about triple or at least double, but often triple glazed panels, and then thermally broken frames to reduce the thermal bridging. So some pretty incredible stuff to solve lots of problems. Particularly, I really like what they said about the desire to have access to the outdoors, even in medium density or high density places where the roof might be the only viable option to having an outdoor area in some buildings, which I don't really think of because I have a sort of a luxury of having a bit of space in suburbia, but in the middle of a city, the roof could become a pretty important asset.
I just experienced this actually in Boston when I was there, a few months ago, and got to do a bunch of filming of the Winthrop Center there. And the place that I was staying in an Airbnb in this old Italian district of Boston, which was beautiful and very dense of these old historic brick buildings. And there was this great roof access with a motorized opening, a skylight opening. And it was such a gracious spot to be in the city.
Yeah.
And I think it was I think when you're in these dense places, you're looking for spots like rooftops like that to really take advantage of and access the outdoors. And and then there was also I think Akshayaa was talking about integrating a unit into a parabolic roof and all of the work, getting back to what you were talking about these complex solutions. And I think really also kind of resonating with the combination of engineer and artiste that a lot of architects bring to their sensibility was fun to hear about.
We've seen this or heard this from 475, but also a number of other component and system suppliers, where they get involved in complex jobs that don't necessarily start as a passive house project, but if they're brought on by the design team early on to solve a structural problem or an aesthetic problem, the conversation often leads to energy performance and energy efficiency. And these guys alluded to that as well, where they sometimes get involved in these quite high-end or interesting projects where they're not a passive house project initially, but by virtue of having people like the team from 475 working on the specification early on, that thinking kind of gets infused into the project, and it's a great way of getting passive house talked about into a team, a design team, construction team that would otherwise maybe not even be thinking about that. And I think 475 being great advocates in that way, as have other component suppliers. But that it's a real credit to the education and the support that they provide alongside high quality products.
Yeah, that's a great point. And they have this, library of example, case studies and technical resources and all sorts of things. There's just a lot of information that 475 can offer to those curious customers of the Lamilux skylights.
Yeah. Well, check it out, 475.com. Great range. You can get some round windows there too. I was impressed that they won't make round ones.
Yeah.
You can really get creative. And also check out the links on the Passive House Accelerator.com as well. Thank you very much for that, Zack. We'll be back again with a regular episode on the Passive House podcast next week.